Today's video is sponsored by Primephonic. Today I want to talk about harmonizing at the keyboard. Harmonizing is just a fancy way of saying finding chords that go along with the melody, or a bass line, but most often you'll probably be using it to find chords that go along with a melody. First, I want to specify that this is for keyboard instruments. Whenever you write music, make sure you think about the person who's going to be playing the music. In this case, a keyboard player. This could mean a piano, a synthesizer, or any other type of keyboard. Keeping that in mind, we need to make sure that the music isn't impossible to play. So, what does that mean for a keyboard instrument? Range is very important for any instrument. For a grand piano, the range is from A0 to C8. If we try to write any music above or below that, the piano player would not be able to play it at all because there just aren't keys on the instrument for those notes. Range is less of an issue with software instruments, but there are usually limits on these as well, so just keep that in mind. This next concept is less cut and dry than range, that is, playability, or how easy or hard it is to play the music on the page. Playability can be affected by anything from the kind of instrument it's being played on to the tempo that it's being played at. We're going to focus on how the music is written on the page today and how that affects playability. So even though you could write a C major chord like this on piano, doesn't mean you should. The player is going to have a really hard time reaching all of those notes. So what can we do to keep playability in mind at the keyboard? I'm going to show you 3 chord shapes that you can use to write any 3-note chord on the piano and has a much easier playability. The first shape is this. Each note is either on consecutive lines or spaces on the staff. It covers all 3 notes of a triad and fits nicely under the hand. For the second shape, we take the lowest note and move it to the top of the chord. Since the lowest note was an F, if we move it to the top and leave the other 2 notes in place, we get this shape. For the last shape, we take the lowest note again and move it to the top of the chord. Since the lowest note was an A, if we move it to the top and leave the other 2 notes in place, we get this shape. With these 3 shapes, you should be able to move from chord to chord in a way that is easy for the player, while also not having to move very far on the keyboard. Let's try an example. First, we need a simple melody like this one. We're in the key of F major, and we need to figure out which chords we should write to go along with this melody. The first thing I like to do is narrow down my choices. If there are too many choices, it makes it harder to decide which chords to use. So I suggest starting with the chords of the key the melody is written in. That way, we don't have to choose from all of the possible chords in music, we only have to choose from 7. Okay, so we have our melody, and we have the chords we can choose from. The next step is easy. For each melody note where you want a chord change, write the chord that contains the note below so you can keep track of your options. For example, the first note is G. Let's look at the chord options and find which ones have a G in them. The first one is G minor. It has that G in the bass. The next is C major. It has a G in the top note of the chord. And the last one is E diminished. It has a G in the middle note of the chord. Now we fill out the rest of our options just like the first note. For each melody note where you want a chord change, find any chord that also has that note. While I fill in the rest of our options, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Primephonic. Primephonic is a streaming music service designed for classical music. They have a much better search engine for classical music so you can find your music faster and easier. They also have music history podcasts so you can learn more about the music you love. And we have a special offer for all of our viewers. You get 2 months free when you use the voucher code ODDQuartet when you sign up for Primephonic. This is a limited time offer, so sign up today and get 2 months of Primephonic free. The link will be in the description as well. Now that we know which chords we can choose from, how do we write them on the keyboard? This is where those 3 chord shapes come in. Let's say you looked at all of your options and you want to use these chords with the melody. The first chord is C major, which has C, E, and G, which we can write like this. Notice that we used one of the chord shapes to make it easier for the keyboard player to read and play. The next chord is F major, which has F, A, and C. So how do we get from a C major chord to an F major chord? First, we look for common tones and try to keep those the same. We learned this back in the voice leading video. In this case, the C is a common tone, and we can keep it the same. So now we need a way for the E and G to move to F and A. If the E and G move up the scale 1 step, we get F and A. So if we write the F and A below the C, we have our F major chord. And it's also written in one of those 3 chord shapes. Now, if we keep working through the melody, keeping in mind common tones and chord shapes, we get this. Here's how it sounds. And that is how you harmonize a melody for keyboard. And this is just the beginning. This is a simple example with a limited number of chords. As you learn more music theory and different styles, you will have many more options of chords to choose from. If you want to learn more about this process, visit the Patreon link below where patrons can download sheet music of this example, as well as 2 more examples using the same melody. Thanks for watching.